Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Landscaping to the Point with me and JC and Josh right down below. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. I know I am. It's been a couple weeks since we've been on. Um, Josh has been sick. Last week I had a bunch of other stuff going on with the family, so it's one of those things. And I think you gotta do what the family needs first before anything, or take care of yourself too. So, I hope everybody's doing that and their day to day stuff. So, uh, JC, what's been going on since we last talked? I know we've talked about spring and we're getting into the spring and the fertilization and all that stuff. What's new with you? What's going on over in your guys' area?
Yeah, it's been a little while since all three of us got together on the podcast, so it's nice to get us all back into the normal swing of things. Not much, man. Weather's been acting crazy. Josh will tell you the same thing. We had a really nice day yesterday. It seemed like spring, and then it went right back into winter again. So a lot of wind, very windy these past couple weeks. But yeah, I think we're kind of getting there at some point when it comes to spring, and hopefully the next time we talk, we'll start getting into the. Well, we're not going to get into mowings for a little while, but hopefully we'll start working our way towards that.
Have you guys noticed in your area? I noticed in our area that like last year we were farther ahead. We were kind of close to mowing in our area to where it was like everything just now started to green. A lot of the bushes are like not even budding yet, but last year a lot of stuff was already budding yet by now. We had a lot of the hosses and stuff were growing up by now. And like there's nothing showing, like you're not seeing where hosses are, you're not seeing where the daylilies are. It's just beyond real from what it was like last year.
It
Did you
kind of
guys have the
feels
same thing?
it kind of feels earlier this year, but it's kind of off and on because we've had so much inconsistencies with the weather that we've had. Like I said, we had one day cold, one day warm, real nice. It feels like spring, but I don't know. It's kind of teasing us a little bit, I think. What do you think, Josh?
Um, yeah, I mean tomorrow, they did forecast us for wet flakes and rain tomorrow. I think tomorrow morning's gonna be like low thirties, mid thirties to start, and then and bump back up. But yeah, we had a few spring like days, almost like a spring like week, and then I think we were like close into the 60s last week at some point, and then
Wow.
the between the wind and the cold front coming in with the storm, it dropped down. But I always look at the cherry blossoms. The cherry blossoms are usually the first things to bloom up here, and I got one in my yard, and you can see the buds are starting to form, and then walking the dog around town. You see some of the trees that are cherry blossoms and all that. The more mature ones are starting to bud a little bit. So I think we get a little bit of rain, and then once we get some more consistent 60-degree days, I think things are gonna take off. But yeah, we don't start mowing lawns till probably around May. Some guys might start a little bit earlier, depending on if something's irrigated or not. But as far as us, we're usually pretty good with mowing until like May 1st, and even some properties, going into Mother's Day. Usually around then. But we'll get the ball rolling with work. I think we were gonna start tomorrow, but we called it because of the rain. We got to work in kind of a saturated area. Um, but we're gonna slowly start getting back into the swing of things, and I think we're gonna kick it into gear. What are we last week of March? We'll probably
Yeah.
start kicking into gear next month with some of the bigger commercial. I mean, next week, the first week of April, with some of the commercial cleanups, and then May will be more municipal and residential stuff.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you guys if you're watching us. If you're watching us, I know you guys are watching us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You're probably going to listen to us later too on Apple or Spotify or Boots on Ground Radio. But we have one over here, a guy that we know, Don State of Lawn over in Canada. He says, thanks for being there and welcome, guys. And he wants to know, can we translate you, Josh? I don't know. I mean, Canada, we could probably translate it, Don, but because of the tariffs, it's going to cost you a lot more than what you really want to do. Okay. So I don't think we want to translate Josh. So
Use
just
AI. You could use
yeah,
AI to translate Josh.
yep, use AI. There's got to
I
be
don't
a
think
Canadian
ever.
AI. So, so
You know, it'd be
But yeah,
funny
I get it.
if Don could download Josh's voice for his GPS.
That would be so awesome.
Take the fucking turn.
I hope you got that, Don. Take that and put that on there, okay?
Go through the rotary.
Oh, it is awesome. So yeah, I get what you're saying, Josh. I mean, we kind of been started. We started late this year. I mean, us up here, usually we're already halfway into our cleanups and going farther into it. And right now, we're only like a week and a half into doing our cleanups. I mean, we did some landscaping 2 weeks ago, but I mean, we're still kind of farther behind than where we are normally. And I think I don't know if it's going to make it a difference this year and make everything later than normal for us. Hoping not, but I think we've had some warm days and we're getting a lot of calls still from, because of the warm days and a lot of sun. There's been, out of the last 2 weeks, I think we've only had one day that's been cloudy. So I think a lot of people are starting to realize spring is coming, but it's not totally here. So I know officially it's spring here, but
the lawn care, the fertilizer companies have been out left and right. I know,
right.
A smaller one that's big in this area has been around True Green. There's been a few of my neighbors. So they're all putting their pre-emergence down and whatnot. I've seen a lot of guys doing residential cleanups, which I think is a little crazy out here. Because like you
Right.
said, you're about a week behind, but I want to say typically you're about a month and a half ahead of us when you
Right.
guys
Right.
in full swing. Because I think by the time you guys are mowing, residential stuff out here, we're starting with the cleanups and whatnot. People don't really want you on. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody on my property, this time of year doing a dethatch or seeding just yet. I'd probably wait till, I got a few that want to go early, which is, mid-April, but again, typically, you get your people that are pre-planning, residential wise, they call in. Like right now, we're busy with municipal and commercial bids, but the residential stuff will start to swing in probably like mid-April once things start budding and people get outside a little bit more and start picking up the garbage in the yard and whatnot. So
Right. Right. Okay, so let's get on to our topic. Our topic is to bulk or not. And it's not about taking a whole bunch of pre-workout like I do and trying to bulk up before the season. I think it's more about, Josh, would you say having bulk mulch is better than having bagged mulch?
What was that again?
Having bulk mulch over bagged mulch.
on hand.
I think there's benefits to having either or, but as a company, is it better to use bulk mulch or bag mulch?
I can see why some people like the bagged. I'm not a fan of bagged. I think there's a lot more involved in it. I think you move a lot faster pulling up with working out the back of a dump truck or a dump trailer in a wheelbarrow. You'll
Right.
move a lot. I mean, one guy can probably from a dump trailer to a front yard landscape bed could probably knock out a yard in 20 minutes. And then go around and detail or whatnot. And other than that, you'd have to you're bringing what's a yard of mulch, like 50 bags or something like that, and you're running back and forth and dropping bags and have to push them down. So I think it's more efficient personally to run out of the back of a truck, and run that way. As far as like keeping it at the shop, I mean, bulk mulch all day. It's a lot easier to load up
Right.
because again, like you think it. Let's say like you have a storage area, storage container, or a locker. And you're keeping 200 bags of mulch in there. You're gonna have to load those by hand or put them on a dolly and load them unless you have a forklift, which what I mean. You're probably not gonna have wherever you are. You gotta load those by hand, drive them to a job, and then unload them by hand. Whereas if you have bulk mulch in your yard, you probably have some sort of loading machine where it's gonna take you 5-10 minutes to load up, high a large amount of mulch into a dump truck or dump trailer and then go and run some barrels.
I agree with you. I feel having the bulk, if you can get bulk at your own yard, I think in the long run, it's going to save you cost wise, because we've just been looking at it because we're trying to do it here at our shop. And the cost for us to have bulk delivered to us costs us half of what we are actually paying for the bulk right now by having it, going to a yard and picking it up ourselves. So I feel like having it on your own site is going to probably save you a lot more money than, in the long run than going and having it filled up yourself. Would you agree, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, complete transparency. I pay, for instance, my black mulch, which is one of my big sellers. If I was to pick that up at my local yard, um, I want to say I'm between like $38 and $40 per yard. And they usually retail around like 58 to 60. I buy it in bulk. You have to do a minimum of like a triaxle or something like that. Delivered, it's $24 a yard. I wholesale it for about 36, and then retail it for about 60 plus delivery, with the minimum was like a 3 yard delivery. So it
It's not
saves a lot
bad.
of money. You're saving anywhere from like 10 to $12 a yard. By bringing in bulk, and that adds up throughout the course of the year. Especially like on the commercial stuff, we have to be a little bit more competitive with the pricing. I can kind of fudge the numbers with the mulch and make it up on the residential side of the delivery side.
Right, and I think that that helps you in the long run. I mean, think about, if you're, the cost of it being higher. I mean, somebody, if you can't have it on site, it's going to cost you more to go back and pick it up. Plus, all that time, and if you have it on site of your own place, it's going to save you a lot more time and money than, vice versa. So I think it's
It also saves time if even if you're running by yourself or you have someone driving for you. They get the drive time and the wait time. How many times have you gone to a mulch out in the spring where you might have to wait 25 minutes, for a line to clear out if they only have one machine running. Whereas like, if you have like you can find a ship box skid steer on Marketplace for like $5,000. You just needed to load up a trailer, invest the money into it, get one row of Ben blocks for, a few $100 and, a few $1,000 skid steer and load it up. I mean, I'm telling you right now, the amount of time it saves from driving from point A to point B and waiting at point B and then driving to point C over the course of the spring, it's going to make a huge difference. I guarantee you.
I agree with you with that. I mean, I know that, like, at our site that we go and pick up mulch, if you're there at 1 o'clock, the guy always takes a lunch break. Both loaders go take a lunch break, and you're stuck for a half hour. So I mean, I think, having it to where I can go and pick it up myself at my own yard and eliminate that half hour time frame is going to save me big, especially going back and forth, no matter where I'm at. So I think it, like you said, it's the whole point of time that you can save, especially if you got somebody that can load, and go back and forth. Now, I'd love to get a ship box, skid steer, because I mean, over here, a ship box one is like going for like 10 to 15 grand. So I mean, maybe when I come up to Boston, maybe I
You're
can find one.
talking. No, I'm talking ship box for like the old Mustangs. The one where it's the joystick control, like the single in between your legs controller, no heat, no windows, no plexiglass, no nothing. If you get anything with glass in the door, yeah, you're talking 10 to 15 grand for a 30-year-old machine. But I mean, if you really look at some of the farm machines that are, you get something that's barely running. Again, you don't need something that needs to run for hours on end. You're starting it, scooping, loading, you're good.
Right. I agree with you on that one, definitely. Brightstone over on Instagram's got our joke of the week. He's got a couple. He's just throwing them out at me left and right over here, waiting for me to just throw them out. So we'll go across a couple of them. He says, "What do you get if you cross a snowman and a vampire?" I think he said this one before.
What do you get when you cross a snowman and a vampire?
Yeah.
No idea.
Frostbite.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
A good dad joke.
And then, why don't fish play basketball?
Why?
Because they're afraid of the net. That's a good NCAA basketball tournament.
I like that. I like that.
That was a good one. Okay, we'll give you that one today.
Those they made you laugh just a little bit, but they were clever more than funny.
Right. Yeah. We're still Brightstone. We need that little bit more funny. Okay, you gotta work a little bit more.
I like those. Those are good. I'll give them credit.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're good. I mean, the frostbite one I've heard a couple times, and I always kind of snicker at that one because it's it's one of those things that I know already the answer, but I enjoy the joke pretty much. So that's awesome. Um, so Josh, if you could, you know, I know you do a lot of work with hardscaping and stuff. So do you keep a lot of that bulk at your shop also, like the nines, the screenings and all that too?
No, I'd like to. It's just space. I don't have the space right now.
Right.
We were supposed to actually be moving soon, but that's kind of on the delay now, and that was part of the reason so that we could, we don't call it nine, we just call it 3/8 chips, 3/4 inch clean. 57 to 9, I think it is. But I would like to. I like to keep the three, so and even sell that as a wholesaler.
Right.
Um, Eventually, I think we are going to get more into the material side of things and probably bring more of it in. For right now, it's just the mulch. The mulch is a fast mover. We know, we got 8 weeks that we can really push that shit out, make a move for it. We have a few properties where it takes up quite a bit, so it's nice to have it on hand. Some of them we drop ship directly, but it's nice to have it on hand when you need to do touch up. We can just leave in the morning with the mulch. But at some point we'll get into a little bit more of like loam, compost, mulch, and then like the aggregates.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's always a good thing. I mean, last year we kept I'd say we kept like about 4 yards of loam and compost and uh, our two colors of mulch on our property just because there was always that time that we would need like a half a yard and we'd finish up and the place was closed. So we didn't want to run to the shop, run all the way back and, have to come back the next day. So we run back to the shop, grab it up real quick and then head on over to the site so we could finish that up for the day. And I think that helps us out in the long run by having it on hand. Even though we don't have a loader, so I mean we did a lot of it by hand, but still, when you're only got to load up a half a yard or a yard, or you're just that one wheelbarrow short, I think that saves you in time of having to go buy. Because most places around us, you got to buy a whole yard. So I mean, you're buying a whole yard. If you're short one wheelbarrow, you got to go buy a whole yard. So definitely something to keep on hand if you can have it on hand. Um,
Scott, what do you
so
think about the? Sorry. What do you think about
go ahead.
the homeowner? If someone, do you think it's beneficial for the homeowner to stock up on bagged mulch versus having mulch delivered because you have to pay for the delivery fee, right?
Right, you do have to pay for delivery. I would say, if it was me as a homeowner, I would say it's better to have it delivered by bulk, because you're gonna, even going to some of these places, especially like Home Depot and Lowe's, and they have their spring sales where you get 4 bags for $10 sometimes. Them bags are so small. You're not, they're 1.5 cubic. You're not gonna get that much. Is especially when you're thinking about a wheelbarrow. That's you got 6 cubic in a wheelbarrow. You're running out. 4 bags is not gonna fill your wheelbarrow up, and if it does, you're lucky if that. So at that point, you're having to buy 40, 50 bags just to do 2 yards, 3 yards. By buying bulk, even having a dealer buy it, like Josh buying it from a wholesaler or a supplier, you're going to save money in the long run to have it bought and delivered compared to having still buying bulk bags, all these bags, and having to fill it up in your car or in your trunk. I've seen so many people that will take their minivan and fill their whole minivan full of bags, and they're trying to get it to their house, and then they're trying to get them out, and they're ripping open before they could even get them out to get to the wheelbarrow, and then you're cleaning up your car. Just pay, even if it's just $5-10 more as a homeowner. I would say buy it in bulk and have it delivered. You're going to save it in the long run. It might sit in your driveway. I've seen in some neighborhoods where it'll sit in a driveway. We did a delivery last year for a guy, and he wanted 2 yards of topsoil. So we brought 2 yards of topsoil. We put it in his driveway. It sat in his driveway for 2 months, but he eventually got it. He didn't want to pay somebody to spread it all around, but he did it. And what was the cost of that compared to having to go back and forth with buying bags left and right? I think it's better to do it that way. Josh, what's your thoughts on that?
I've seen a lot of people that buy the bag stuff, like you said, especially towards the end of the spring and summer. They really push that stuff out, like the buy 4 get 3 free or something.
Right.
I get why people do it. Problem is with that shit, I find like a lot of the bag shit can develop the mold in it when it
Right.
sits over time. I don't know if that's because it's like refrigerated when they originally send it to something, but like yeah, I don't know if you ever got it. You get kind of like that icky, almost like cobweb mold that develops on it.
I think it's the plastic bags because it
Maybe
keeps
yeah,
keeps
the
the
moisture in
moisture.
it. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I get why people do it, but I'm just a fan of bulk mulch. Like even when I do stuff at my house, I don't order. I don't live anywhere near my yard, so it's hard for me to just bring stuff down here. But so I'll order from a supply center around here, and I just order bulk and I pay the delivery fee. It's
Right.
like you said, it's like loading up in your car or whatever. I'd rather just have it dropped in my driveway, and I don't have a big piece of property, so I'll just go about it around.
Right. Right. Definitely. I think it's going to be easier and more cost effective for you. Even like I said, even if it costs a little bit more. I mean, I feel like, buying bags is always good for certain people, but like Josh said, there's so many times I seen using bags when I first started that, the bags get that mold, that they're still wet. And, we actually had a customer that one year bought 3 pallets of red mulch because, at one point we weren't doing red mulch. So literally he bought 3 pallets of red mulch and we had to move them around. And every one of those bags was wet as all heck, and you can tell that that's going to create mold quickly. And, is that beneficial to your, plants? Your plants could end up with that mold, and you don't want that to end up ruining up, some of the plants that you have in your beds.
Mhm.
So, Josh, as you're going on from here, eventually you said you're going to have all that aggregates and all that stuff on there on hand. Will that help you out in the long run from going back and forth to the yard and picking up or having it delivered, to a site?
No. So again, if I order from a quarry and have it delivered directly, it's a lot cheaper, and usually there's a minimum on that.
Right.
For instance, if I pick it up at a local supplier, right? I want to say for 3/4 inch, which is 57 stone. I'm probably paying around like $40 a yard. Whereas if I was to have that trucked in, I'd be around like 13 to $15 a ton per yard. It's a ton, and then again, because the yards don't have scales, they sell it by the yard. And the same thing with the number eights. Like right now, the number 9, which is the 3/8 chipped. Um, that would, I think, picking that up locally anywhere is about $60. When I have it trucked in triaxles and trailers, I want to say I'm probably around the same thing, no more than $20 a yard. So you see the difference in cost. That margin's there to help me out. And then just the back and forth and waiting. Sometimes it is nice to just have it drop shit directly, so you don't have to
Right.
deal with sending the truck back. And we'll do that on bigger jobs. Um, I don't own a triaxle, so it is, if you have a big job that you need 20 yards of 57 stone rather than having a guy drive back and forth, 4 or 5 times to get that triaxle's worth, you're better off just trucking it in. So it's a win-win, you know what I mean, in some scenarios. In some scenarios you got to just bite the bullet and buy it. But for me personally, I would like having it on hand, and then I would probably reach out to my network and wholesale some of it out, mark it up, 10, $15 a yard, and just sell it to my guys that I know locally.
Right. So now, if you did that, would you eventually, because you were talking about, getting equipment and renting it out and starting a rental company, would you turn around and buy a triaxle truck and dump truck and do, try to do it yourself with the delivery?
It's
Could it be
it's
thought? Could it be something brought into?
it's a thought, yeah. Like
Right.
there is a vision of that at some point, yeah.
Okay.
That's a big investment, and I'm
Right.
not there yet. Like again, right now it's cheap. Like as rare as we use them, it's cheaper for me to just sub it out,
Right.
and we have to haul off a bunch of dirt or snow. We just sub it. Um, you know, 8 hour minimum for the day. Just under $1,000 for a guy plus the dump fees. Versus like you can get a ship box for 40 grand, but then how much are you putting in for a $40,000 triaxle?
Right.
Um, and it honestly depends on Massachusetts is getting kind of weird with diesel applications as far as like new vehicles. So that would kind of throw a wrench in the idea if, you have to go to electric triaxles, which is what they're
Yeah.
trying to do. Yeah, that's going to force the cost of anything that would be originally placed to go through the fucking window, like out the window. Um, so I don't know. It's definitely in the cards. I like to have it, but I have to make sure that I have enough work for it. So
Right, right. I agree with you. I mean, I really think that compared to probably like you said, buying a piece of buying a triaxle and all that, and having it just delivered is probably going to be probably cheaper in the long run, unless you're doing so much deliveries on it and pulling in so much that you got to keep that filled up on a regular basis. So
and I think my progression would be, if my retail sales got that high, I would probably start with, subcontracting or just hiring a triaxle and say, hey, here's your rate, per ton per yard, or what do you want per hour to make it competitive so that we both make money. Again, like in Massachusetts, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the same way across the board. But for a triaxle, you have to hold a CDL. So now, I have to buy the truck, I have to maintain the truck, fuel the truck, and now I have to hire a driver that has to be reliable. Um, that's kind of the big problem with um, supply ads around here, unless they're family owned and family ran. Um, People run through those triaxle drivers.
right,
Um, they jump from job to job, so it's tough. So I think progressions would be, start with what we have now for dumps, 2.5 ton, and then 1 tons, and then the inserts going out, and then hire a triaxle or a semi, and then progress from there, whether we want to entertain buying one or not.
okay. What is I know Massachusetts is different than Ohio. What is the CDL rate to get a vehicle that has to be CDL drive?
Combined
I know it's
weight,
like 28,000 for us here.
so combined weight of 26,001 pounds.
Okay. Okay. So you're a little bit less than us. So I see what I'm saying. Yeah. So literally at that point, what that would be, what, 5 ton pretty much on a bigger truck, 5 to 10 ton pretty much.
Probably you'd be around 18 ton with
Okay.
the triaxle is what you would get in there, and you're overweight. So figure a triaxle, 36,000, 39,000 pounds,
Right.
plus you throw in like another 10,000. So, you'd be
Yeah.
able to legally push, I think, a 450 with probably about 6 or 7 tons would
Okay.
be. I mean, obviously, guys do more than that, and they get away
Right.
with it. It all depends on the truck team you got. Those tickets are fucking big if you get caught. So you don't want to
Right.
mess around. Some of those truck guys can be nice, and some of them, they leave the house and they get in a fight with their wife in the morning and forget it. Fucking $5,000 ticket, and then they can take the truck on you too.
Right. I mean, I don't, I always, we have to rate our commercial trucks at whatever weight we are planning to have in it, especially with hauling trailers and stuff. And I'm always on the higher side, just to be on the safe side, because it, like, you get that time you're throw a mower on there, and then you got a 1 ton of a stone, and you got all this other equipment on there that could put you way overweight. And if you definitely get pulled over for one one little thing, I don't want to pay that $5,000 fine right off the bat, or anything else if it's coming my way. So I'd rather be on the safe side, and I think you guys are probably the same way. And want to be the safest you can, and not push trying to put that extra ton on there just to get to that job either. So
Oh yeah,
I
it's
see.
strict too. Even for the smaller end business owners, when it comes to pulling trailers and stuff like that. Like legally, you have to have 4 points of contact for like anything that you're tying down. And yeah, they lately they've been getting a lot more stopping a lot more trailers and trucks nowadays when it comes to those things. Even like I said, even the small single axle trailers, making sure your load is secured and everything like that. So from bigger companies to smaller companies, man, it's you got to do it the right way.
Right, right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. You know, a lot of smaller companies don't realize that you got to have the stuff, you know, strapped down the right way, because you know, you don't have the stuff strapped down and then you get pulled over and you're like, well, why am I getting pulled over? And he's like, oh, I seen a gas can sliding around, or the mower was sliding around. I've been following you for the last 10 miles and thought, you know, I better pull you over just because of the, you know, mower, you know.
Yeah, and it's tough because we all know, like, loading and unloading takes so much time, you
Right.
know? So it's like, after you finish a property, you don't wanna resecure everything if you're just going down the street, you know, and most people don't, but
You know what's funny? So I've asked 3 DOT state policemen the proper way to chain down a something you're towing, like a skid steer or whatnot. And
Okay.
I've never got the same answer. And one of them, it's funny. I stopped on a Sunday morning. I think this was like a year or two ago. I was cutting through a parking lot getting my coffee, and I seen him. I seen the truck. I've seen this guy on 290. You know, he pulls everybody over, and I seen him with the truck, the F-350. He runs around in, and he was going in Chipotle, crossing the parking lot. So you know, I say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna shoot my shot here." So I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I just," and this guy was a bootstrap too. So
Right.
I'm like, "Oh God, this guy love me or hate me." So I said, "Hey, I just got a question." I said, "I own a landscape company," and I said, "I drive, you know, from the Andover area to Boston, and from Andover to like Worcester County, and we tow a lot, and I just don't know what the proper procedure is." I said, "I know it's 4 points of contact, but like." Am I able to have one straight chain going from one side to the other, or do I need 4 chains and 4 binders going across there? And he goes to me, "It all depends on the officer you get that day." And I said, "But that doesn't help me." He says, "Listen," he goes, "there's no clear rule on how you do it." He goes, "There's 4 points of contact." He goes, "Technically, you're supposed to have 4 binders on there." He goes, "But you get guys that'll let you slide." He goes, "Your best bet is to just to have the 4 binders and the 4 chains." The big thing in Massachusetts, what the guys don't realize, if you have a boom, you're supposed to chain that boom down also now. So if you're towing an excavator or a backhoe, you got to throw a
Right.
strap chain across that. But what gets a lot of guys too is, so, and I don't know how it is in other states, but in Mass now, um, any commercial vehicle now has to have DOT numbers.
Yep.
So you know, if you have technically, if you have, you know, Karen's Cleaning, who's driving a Toyota RAV4 or whatever, Honda RAV4, whatever it is, Honda CRV, they're supposed to have DOT numbers on their car now. So it's anything that's commercial. It used to just be vehicles that were over 10,000 pounds would have to have them, or commercial plates. Now it's, if you have that decal that represents a business on your car, you're supposed to have DOT numbers. Second thing is, a lot of guys, again, in Mass, it's 26,001 pound combined weight. So that's the weight of your vehicle plus the weight of your trailer plus the load you carry.
everything.
The one thing he did tell me when I was asking about weight, he said your best bet, because he's like, "What do you hold in your truck usually during the day?" I said, "I'll have a transfer tank, a toolbox, maybe some tools in the back seat, you know, shovels and stuff in the back, and then the trailer is just a trailer with the machine." This last DOT cop told me, "Go into a weigh station with a full tank of diesel in your truck, a full tank of diesel in your transfer tank, the exact tools that you would use when using that day, and no machine, and weigh yourself out there and see where you are empty. That way, you know, empty with the tools that you use every, empty meaning your trailer's empty, but
Right.
your truck's ready to go with a full tank of gas in your truck and a full tank of gas in your diesel tank in your transfer tank, plus all the tools in your boxes in your bed. You'll know, okay, I'm at, you know, 13,000 pounds, you know, so I have a little bit of weight to play with, where I can put a 262 or a 304 on the back of that truck without any issues."
Right. I think
Because
that's the
then
best way to do it.
well, think about it. So, like with the F-650, the second you put a landscape trailer on there and open it, you're overweight. You
Wow.
need a CDO.
Wow. Yeah, see, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, you know, and you know, I think it's coming more common, especially with the DOT numbers. I mean, Ohio's not totally on board like Massachusetts is with the DOT numbers, but they're starting to get to that point where they're asking us as commercial owners if we have DOT numbers to go across the, you know, not United States with it. So I think that's one of the things that's going to come more effect, and people don't realize when you start hauling landscape trailers and you got a bigger truck. You know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, get the bigger truck, get the," you know, because if you're doing this big landscape truck job, you want that bigger truck. Well, now you got to think about that when you're hauling the mowers. You put 3 mowers on there. Each mower is 800 to 1,000 pounds. You're talking a good 4,000 pounds. With 3 mowers, all the equipment on there. They don't realize that. A lot of guys don't realize that.
How much does a mulch mate weigh?
I have no clue. But dude, that trailer and that, it's got to be at least, close to, and he's always pulling it with 3,500. So, think about that. That's got to be close with you. You're putting in what that one trailer he's saying holds 10 yards, 15 yards. So you're talking that's got to be close to the CDL.
So look at it like this: an F550 dump has a GVW of 19,500 pounds.
Right.
Your landscape trailer, 5,000 pounds, right there. So now you're already kissing that. Put a couple of mowers on there. Put a couple of right mowers on there. Big boys, gas tanks, some debris. You get pulled into a scale station unless you're staying on the back roads, then you're in trouble.
Right.
And you might, you could get a fine. If you get a guy in a good day, he might be nice enough to let you drop the trailer and then come back with a pickup truck and get it. But it could go either way. It can be very expensive.
Oh yeah, I think so. Here's a question: Do they randomly pull you over?
They could pull you over they don't need a reason to pull you over.
Right. Okay. In Ohio, we have the state goes around, the state troopers go around and pull over for DOT and stuff, and they have a special van that they drive around. And what you'll do is every once in a while you'll see on many traffic roads where they'll have that van. You'll have a state trooper there, and you're going to get pulled over if you're a commercial guy, if you're a big semi. It just depends on the day who they're going to pull over. But I've seen them where they'll sit right on that edge of that line if it's a 2-lane road, and they'll say, okay, every car that's coming through there that's a commercial truck or a big semi, they're pulling over. So
the Massachusetts State Police has a separate division, a commercial enforcement division, I guess you would call it, and they're known as the truck team. And I'm just getting this info from the guy that I talked to at Chipotle that day. So there's 15 of them in the state. And I'll tell you, there's 2 of them that I drive by on my way home in the summer every single day. And every single day, they both have a customer. And typically what they're going after the guys with loads. And they're not going after the tractor trailers. They're going after the fence companies that they're looking for weight and they're looking for violations. So, I've seen them pull over a couple ship boxes, but honestly, usually they're newer trucks that just have a load on them. And I think they're trying to see if they're properly strapped, if they're overweight, if they have a health card, if they're overweight, do they have a CDL? Are they derated? Do they have a derate certificate? Blah, blah, blah. So they don't need a reason to pull you over. They can pull you over for any inspection.
You're here. You're still there.
You got me? Am I here? I feel like I froze.
Yeah, you're still here. You're still there. We hear you.
His internet was doing an inspection.
Yep. You talked about DOT. Now they're doing a DOT on
your
internet. Oh, yeah.
His megs per second load.
Yeah. His internet's going downhill as normal. Like it's just always happening.
He's here.
Yep, you're here. Go ahead. Continue on with your.
Oh, now he's on.
Oh, Josh, you dropped out.
He was good. He was good. He was moving around.
I think he was getting hit by the DO2 guy. He talked about the DO2 guy too much, and then he popped him in, expecting him. So.
No, you know why he left, right? Because he had to drop off a load.
I caught that one. Yeah, so I mean, state troopers out here can pull you over, if they see you driving erratically. It's typically that truck team that you watch out for. They run Metro West, North Shore, South Shore. I don't see them a lot around Boston, but they're usually on the outskirts. My guys have been pulled over for like driving in the third lane. Not nothing horrible, knock on wood. But I've talked to guys that, they thought that their truck was in tip top shape, and they've walked out with like a $3,000 slip.
Wow. But they can hit you for anything. That's the funny part, and you got to make sure everything is clear and perfect. And even local cops around here will pull over a landscaper, because a lot of the landscapers around here only have one trailer light, and that's the funny thing is you always find every landscaper around here has only got one trailer light, and
Yeah.
local cops will pull you over for that one light. And it's happened to me, and I've had my crew followed all the way to the auto store just to get a light they put on and make sure it worked, before the cops left, or otherwise they were giving them a ticket. So, I mean, make sure you're totally safe and everything's working properly. Make sure you're rated right for when you're driving around with, for DOT. Make sure you're up to par, and make sure, like Josh says, you got all 4 contacts, no matter if you got 4 chains, 2 chains, whatever you got to have, make sure it's all strapped down the right way and secure. I think that's the best
You're
thing.
better off to overdo it than to underdo it. And God forbid you get pulled over. I know that some of these commercial guys can be dicks, but like, yes sir, no sir.
Right.
Like you don't want to be flagged, and you don't want to be that prick, because they will write you. It's not like getting a fucking $50 seatbelt violation. These are expensive fees, and you only have a certain amount of time to pay them. And
Right.
they'll flag you, and you'll be decommissioned. Your truck will be off the road. It's not a game. So you want to be kind of, even if you're having a bad day, be pleasant to these guys. Listen to what they're saying, ask questions if you're not sure. One thing that goes back to me, which drives me nuts, right? Every landscaper in the world was pushing Sure Can, right? And I don't know if they're a
Right.
sponsor of the show or whatever, but again,
They are.
they're not DOT approved or fucking OSHA approved. So technically, like, you could be written up for a fucking violation on that. You're supposed to have those metal eagle cans on your truck. I don't know if guys actually get their balls busted. That's the one thing
No
I
idea.
don't. I'm not 100%, but I don't think DOT can go into your trailer. They can weigh you, but I don't think they can go into your trailer.
But what if you have an open trailer and they can see it? That's the
Then
thing.
that's buy a fucking enclosed trailer if you're gonna be sneaky.
Right.
Or like, you've seen guys, they'll wedge them with a bungee cord around like the fucking
Right.
the frame of the trailer, and that's
Right.
fine if you're going around. But like, if you're driving on the interstate or like a secondary route or something, technically you're supposed to have those caged up. Like, I know on some of the sites we work in, you can't just leave plastic cans. They throw them out. You can't
Right.
have those on like an a Union site or an Ocean site. They need to be in a cage, and they need to be in a metal container that you can walk.
Right.
So same way. So again, I pushed this on I did an Echo Means Business or a landscape magazine interview with someone from OSHA, and that was the big thing, was the gas cans.
Right. And I think it's always going to be a big thing of gas station cans. I mean, there's so many long companies out there that go with the cheapest gas can, and I think that's one of the things that's always going to be one of those forbidden things is gas cans. And it's gonna, hopefully it eventually changes, but I don't know if it will ever change.
We should start our own company and make metal gas cans.
Right.
Yeah. Josh has got the farming machines. He can farm it all for us.
We'll call it Wicked Gas Cans.
Wicked gas.
Wicked gas
Yep.
cans. Wicked metal.
gas cans. Wicked metal. Yeah, that would be interesting. Well, guys, we're to the end of the show today. I know we're shorted out today, but definitely, guys, thanks for watching us. Continue to watch us here. Watch us on Instagram when we're live on Instagram. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Boots on Ground Radio. Thank you to our sponsors, Cujo, Pro Parts Direct, and we have a whole bunch of other sponsors right now. Sure Can, like Josh.
Not
Yep.
sure can.
And we got a giveaway that we're going to give away next Sunday at 8 o'clock, sometime around the 8 o'clock show. So definitely show up then. So Josh likes to keep dropping off. He's I don't know what he's doing over there.
He got excited when he said giveaway. There he is.
Yeah.
He's outside.
You're outside, Josh.
I'm in the car.
You're going out to Salt. He's going out to Salt, guys. Middle of April. Almost. It's going to Salt.
Middle of March, buddy.
But return back next week because we got a big giveaway. There's a whole bunch, over $2,000 worth of products that we're going to give away to one lucky winner. So definitely show up next week. It's going to be a good giveaway. So Josh, JC, you got anything else to add on for the night?
No, I'm looking forward to next week's podcast. So we'll get it back into gear again.
Yeah, I can't wait. We'll get back into this awesome, and next thing you know, we'll be out doing all kinds of good work. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you all next week at 8 o'clock for the big giveaway.